Welcome to another week in the life of the Nigerian Parliament. This is the Gavel. I'm Terry Ikumi. We begin with a drama that played out when Senator Natasha attempted to forcefully resume her duties as a senator, following the Federal High Court's judgment, which she claims annulled her suspension by the Senate. The Senate, however, says the certified true copy of that judgment didn't ask the Senate to recall her. However, she could only go past the first two security points of the National Assembly before meeting a locked gates. Here's a detailed report on that and plenary in the Senate this past week.
4 months after her suspension by the Senate for unparliamentary conduct, Senator Natasha attempted to resume her legislative duties as senator after a court judgment on her suspension delivered on July 4, 2025.
Even salt itself is derived from water, from the ocean. So even if I melt under fire, I'll be...
This document has been the bone of contention since that ruling, with the Senate insisting that the court never asked her to resume. The spokesperson of the Senate had maintained that the court gave an advisory which the lawmakers consider as not binding. A statement from Senator Adaramodu states the court found Senator Akpotu-Uduaghan guilty of contempt of court and imposed penalties, including a fine of 5 million naira payable to the federal government and a mandatory apology in 2 national newspapers and on her Facebook page. Till date, these directives remain uncomplied with. We advise the distinguished senator to refrain from any attempt to storm the Senate next Tuesday under a false pretext, as doing so would not only be premature but also undermine the dignity of the Senate and violate due process. That advice was ignored by the senator, whose vehicle was prevented by security personnel from gaining entrance into the National Assembly complex. Senator Natasha subsequently decided to alight from the vehicle and make her way into the National Assembly on foot in the company of her supporters. She met further resistance at the next security post, and after a brief scuffle, she and her supporters continued the walk into the National Assembly, only to meet yet another locked gate. After several failed attempts to get the security officers to open the gate, the lawmaker briefed the media on her thoughts about what had transpired and her next line of action.
That outburst I had on the floor was just a compilation of so many wrongs that Akpabio has meted against me. And I will say this, pretty much it's a shame that we have had so many good Senate presidents. We've had Chuba Akpadibo of blessed memory. We've had Senator David Mark. We've had Bukola Saraki. We've even had Ahmed Lawal, who is a senator right now. And I'd say this pretty much is the worst assembly Nigeria has ever had. And I hope we will not have to suffer this anymore, because it tells a lot on the individual. And I've said this before and I'm saying it again. The Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, runs the Nigerian Senate as if it's the third-term governor of Akwa Ibom. Many senators are afraid. You've all seen what happened. You are not allowed to speak. When you try to speak or air your views on certain issues that are critical, you get shut down if it does not conform with what he wants. Going forward, I'm going to have a meeting with my legal team, and then most likely they will have to probably proceed to the appellate court to seek interpretations of what has just happened, because we are law-abiding citizens. Everyone here who has accompanied me, you can see no one is unruly, even though some have vehemently decided to express their dissatisfaction with the system. I am a law-abiding citizen, and it is very important I do mention, and Nigerians should know that even though we do have 2 federal government criminal cases against me, they are on criminal defamation, simply because I spoke up on the threat to life. And everybody has a right to speak up on their threat to life. By and large, considering the fact that the Senate is vacating tomorrow, whenever they deem it fit to resume, we would resume as well. So what matters most is All the pressures and all the calls of me apologizing for no wrong that I did, I have refused to do that. So if it means staying the entire 6 months for an unjust suspension, which I am saying, repeating again, has been quashed by the courts, so be it. I have pretty much been busy with my constituents on the brighter side. You've all seen, we've been carrying out a lot of projects in the past few months.
Vowing to come back when the Senate resumes from recess in 2 months, Senator Akpotu Uduaghan and her supporters leave the National Assembly complex, making their way back to her convoy on foot. Inside the chamber, the contrast between the serenity within and the commotion outside was clear, as proceedings progressed uninterrupted with no comment on the matter.
The Senate President, on behalf of all of us,
The Senate leader then began with an announcement.
Nigeria lost 2 illustrious sons on the same day. The second person, another icon, was His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR. And I want to inform this Senate will be taking a special motion as well to honor the late President Muhammadu Buhari. And distinguished colleagues will also have a chance to make contributions in that regard.
A 1-minute silence was then observed in honor of the late Awujale of Ijebu land.
May the soul of Oba Sigiru Kayode Adetona Awagba Abotewele II of Ijebu land rest in perfect peace.
The President of the Senate then clarified recent concerns on social media over the creation of additional states following a personal explanation raised by Senator Abdul Ningi.
A ravaging social media report on a purported report that the Committee on Constitutional Review has penciled and proposed 12 states to be created. And therefore, the committee is submitting its report to the Senate. Mr. President, I'm a member of the Constitutional Review Committee. I'm equally a member that attended the zonal conference, the zonal constitutional conference committee in Maiduguri. First, our report from the zonal perspective has not been submitted to the main Constitutional Review Committee, and I've also asked other zonal leaders. Reports have not been tabled, nor submitted to the main committee. It is therefore imperative that the social media report that the National Assembly has penciled 12 states is fake, is toxic, and is an irresponsible media outlet. So it is important, Mr. President, to take this matter to Nigerians, that the Senate has not, for now, sat on any committee's report from the zonal levels. The main committee is yet to even received nor evaluate any report.
There are proposals for state creation, well over 42 or so, but not one has reached a stage where we can even say we have finished zonal deliberations or even finished national deliberation and then transmitted to state houses. The processes of making amendments or alterations to the Nigerian Constitution are very laborious and very stringent. So please, the public should be aware, as raised by Senator Ningi, that no state has been created by this august assembly.
The Senate also considered and approved the 2025 to 2026 external borrowing plan of $21.5 billion presented by President Bola Tinubu for consideration after the submission of a report.
In this detailed report, identify ministries by ministry, agencies by agents of the government that is taking what in this borrowing plan document that we have. Mr. President, on that note, we can say that the budget 2025 implementation can now commence in full.
Mr. President, this needs specification. How much goes to in each?
Now, both chambers of the National Assembly held separate valedictory sessions for late former President Muhammadu Buhari. One after the other, lawmakers took turns to remember him from their perspectives. Take a listen.
As scheduled, the Senate held a special session in honor of late former President Muhammadu Buhari, where eulogies poured in for the late general who passed on July 13, 2025.
He was a very, very humble person. He was a very, very honest person. And he was also humorous.
It was President Buhari and leading his economic team, chaired by the Vice President, Professor Oshibanjo, bail out states. Otherwise, states would have collapsed. This country would have been in total mess.
Today, Buhari is there. Nobody would be there with him except him and his good deeds. So we should do all good for our country, for ourselves, for our families, for our responsibility given to us by God.
He didn't carry anything along, no properties, no wife, nothing. Only good deeds that he left behind. May his soul rest in peace. May we now rise for the condolence message.
A minute's silence was then observed. Meanwhile, in the House of Representatives, lawmakers went into a closed-door session for about an hour and resumed with an unplanned valedictory session for late former President Muhammadu Buhari, with the Deputy Speaker presiding. He kicked off the session by reading the tribute of the Speaker.
A leader who served Nigeria for nearly 6 decades, from a young military officer to a democratic president, always striving for the nation's progress. His contributions to infrastructure, reviving rail lines like Abuja-Kaduna and Lagos-Ibadan, completing the second Niger Bridge, and rehabilitating thousands of kilometers of roads, complemented the legislative advancements we celebrate today. These achievements, born of his vision and our collaborations, form a foundation of Nigeria's future. Colleagues, let the legacy of President Buhari and whatever disagreements we may hold about his tenure unite us now. In this chamber, where he labored alongside us to build a stronger Nigeria, let us resolve to carry forward his commitment to integrity, his commitment to accountability, his commitment to service. His life reminds us that leadership is not about perfection, but about steadfast dedication to the public good.
Other lawmakers then made contributions.
But he was one man who was not compromised by the trappings of power, who lived within his modest means whenever he found himself, or wherever he found himself. We remember him because growing up in primary school, when he was the military head of state, I was one of the young chaps he picked from the primary school, and we were trained to form the Y Brigade, the war against indiscipline.
Both myself and Shagaya, and maybe Honorable Sesi, I'm not sure, will not be here if he didn't assent to the Not Too Young to Run bill. He also worked on electoral reforms. I will conclude, Mr. Speaker, by saying it was also under President Buhari's guidance that Zamfara State Court literally handed Zamfara to the opposition.
We are reminded that the measure of a man is not merely in the years he lives, but in the legacy he leaves behind. President Buhari was a patriot, and throughout his life, as an elder statesman and as a leader to all.
For those of us who are older and were alive during the military regime, will recall the disciplined
country that he led. Himself and the late Babatunde Idiagbon, may their souls rest in peace. They brought in a program called WAI, War Against Indiscipline. Because of that program, because of the way and manner the president went about it, everybody was compelled to queue at bus stations without any security men being there.
Welcome back to the second half of the Gavel. Let's focus fully now on the House of Representatives, where attention was drawn to the recent visa restrictions by the United States of America on African countries, including Nigeria. The House wants the action rescinded as soon as possible. Meanwhile, the House passed the 1.485 trillion naira budget of Rivers State, which was passed 4 weeks ago by the Senate, and the amended federal government borrowing plan as requested by President Bola Tinubu.
You are welcome to the Parliament.
The Green Chamber was almost empty as lawmakers resumed plenary for the first session of the week.
Condemned in strong terms the
motions of urgent national importance were received, one of which drew attention to the recent visa restrictions by the United States of America on African countries, including Nigeria.
Condemned in strong terms the decision by the United States government to downgrade Nigeria visa status without due consideration of the historical, strategic, and people-centric ties between both nations. Urge the United States Embassy in Nigeria and the United States Department of State to rescind the new visa policy decision and restore 5-year multiple entry visa regime previously granted to Nigerian citizens.
The motion was adopted, and another motion of urgent national importance on the need to resolve the crisis affecting dentistry students at the University of Calabar is taken and adopted.
The House resolved as follows. 1. To call on University of Calabar to immediately halt the punitive measures affecting students and work collaboratively with stakeholders to implement equitable remedial solutions such as phased induction plans, catch-up models, or facilitated transfers to accredited faculties.
A point of order on personal explanation was raised by another lawmaker, bordering on confusing court judgments and citing the court judgment on Senator Natasha Akpotu-Uduaghan.
That, should I say, that is about to happen today in the National Assembly, where a judgment of a court gives judgment that is subject to different interpretation by the parties, where the litigant says the judgment of the court says this, and the plaintiff says the judgment of the court says this. It is conflicting. And as members of parliament, Mr. Speaker, I think it is important for us to advise our judiciary that judgment of court should be simple, with clear explanation and simple English, devoid of any ambiguity.
This issue should come by way of motion.
Yes.
And then we'll refer it appropriately to the committee with the mandate to look at those judiciary-related issues.
To wrap up the day, the House passed the 1.485 trillion naira budget of Rivers State, which was passed 4 weeks ago by the Senate. The new borrowing plan seeks to accommodate the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway project, as well as the Nigeria Universal Communications Access project, targeted at bridging the digital divide through the deployment of 7,000 telecommunication towers across underserved and unserved communities in Nigeria.
The committee, in the course of the assignment, observed that the borrowing plan does not equate the actual new borrowing for the 2025 fiscal year, as it has already been captured by the Midterm Expenditure Framework, MTEF, covering both the federal and state governments. In the second report, Mr. Chairman, it was noted that the federal government has been complying with the implementation of the provisions of the Pension Reform Act 2014.
The committee also highlights that parts of the loans will be used to fund priority projects such as railways, security, agriculture, power plants, housing, and digital connectivity.
The ayes have it.
Meanwhile, the House of Representatives is considering a bill to coordinate all oil decommissioning efforts in Nigeria's oil and gas sector. The bill, sponsored by the House leadership, seeks to ensure international best standards as well as protect host communities and the environment. Chairman of the House Committee on Petroleum Upstream, Ado Dogua, while speaking to stakeholders in Abuja, says the bill will not duplicate existing legal frameworks.
This initiative comes as a direct response to the numerous incidents of non-compliance by oil and gas companies with the proper decommissioning process, incidents that have left indelible scars on our host communities, especially in the Niger Delta region. These challenges highlight the urgent need for a structured, transparent, and enforceable national framework to guide decommissioning activities across the sector. We also recognize the commendable efforts of the regulatory institution in enforcing all assessing decommissioning practices. This bill is not meant to duplicate your work, but to complement and strengthen existing legal frameworks while creating a unified approach to a matter of national importance.
Now, this week on Constituency Focus, we'll speak to Representative Jafaru Leko, who represents Bogoro Das Tafawa Balewa Federal Constituency of Bauchi State in the House of Representatives.
My constituency is largely a rural area, and I know there are a lot of issues of infrastructures. Though my predecessor, Right Honorable Yakubu Dogara, did excellently well, I could say now I'm entering a very big shoe, but by the grace of God, we are going to do well, because when we are seeking for support of the people, we went around the constituency. There are actually issues that has to do with infrastructure. There are a lot of farmers, and we also have issues of shortage of water. We see and try everything possible to ensure that we touch all these areas of infrastructure, especially the issues of water, the issues of even if not the full tight road, a feeder road, because a lot of our people are farmers, so that they can easily move out their, farm produce to where they can sell and make something for a living. So by the grace of God, issues of area of water, healthcare and agriculture, I will do everything possible, even though I know what I have in the budget is very meager compared to my predecessor, who was the Speaker of this House. So, but even at that, I'm not leaving anything, I'm doing everything possible to ensure that I have done something reasonable that my people will appreciate, because that is what we promise our people. And even before coming in, while I was in service, I'm doing a lot. So I know most of their problem, but what is there is that I cannot do what is not in the budget, but I'll do everything possible to ensure that something good goes down to my people. You know, there is a tradition or a law that each state has a particular budgetary allocation, and which is shared among the members of House of Representatives. In my own situation, unfortunately, in Bauchi State, we are 12, and what was given, when you divide it into 12, it will not go anywhere compared to when we have somebody who is a speaker representing that place. So that is why I'm looking at it as meager compared to what he, has. But, certainly we have to go out of our way to see how we can bring in something. Politics is all about lobby, all about relationship, and there are other, foreign aid that we could also use to see how they could assist us. Because in Bauchi State, I have the biggest federal constituency. It's only my constituency that has 3 local governments, and all the 3 local governments are very huge. So, but by the grace of God, we will see what we can do. We are lobbying. We are also using our friends. To me, what my people need most is water. because I know there are a lot of issues of water, and in almost all the places we went, people, brought up the issue of water. So I want to work seriously on water, on healthcare, and on agriculture, because most of my people are farmers. My constituency is an agrarian area. So I want to work hard. I want to put concentration of this water, healthcare, and agriculture. I think doing that will now reduce the pressure on them. And again, I know there is also issue of insecurity, which I believe has to do with poverty and what have you. I'm also doing, trying to do much on that, because I met the IG on that issue. I met the Commissioner of Police. I even was with the Director SSS. So, and I written to all of them, because there is unfolding issues of insecurity, especially in DAS and Lere axis of Tafa Balewa, which is really, really disturbing me. I'm doing serious effort. I even met with the senator. The senator from my zone is in charge of national security and intelligence. Couple of times we met with him, and we are doing a lot on the ground.
Well, that's all the time we have on the Gavel this week. Send feedback to the Gavel at channelstv.com. Thanks for your time. I'm Terry Kumi, reminding you that the National Assembly has now adjourned till the 23rd of September 2025. That's the annual recess of the National Assembly. Goodbye.